Hello there, welcome. You can call me Spalding, and welcome to a video. I want to be talking about, is MKX actually worth it for the single player alone? The launch has been iffy with online, to say the least. And also, if you play online, you will fight Scorpion 8 times a day, and he will do the little fucking trip kick that takes about half your health off, and really feels like he's just lightly patting you to the ground. So, is MKX actually good if you just want to play single player? And the answer is, if you want it to. I understand that that isn't actually an answer, if you were actually thinking that, because, well, let's face it, if you wanted to, sitting alone in the dark could be a waste of could be a use of your time. However, I want to actually talk about what I mean when I say, is it worth it? And if you want it. So, I'm going to be narrating over just me fighting one of the towers of the game. And the towers are probably where you're actually going to spend most of your time if you want to play single player. The story of MKX is not too long. It's about, depending on how good you are, 6 to 8 hours. I've seen some people complaining, or some good people complaining, oh, it took me 4 hours, I was bored. It took me around 7, but I've never played an MKX game before, so I've had about maybe a 50% win rate in the first 4 hours of it, so I ended up repeating fights a lot. But if you want a decent story, then MKX is actually not too shabby. I actually thought it was pretty good. The characters actually had a lot of character to them. And honestly, you could do a lot worse in terms of fighting game stories. In terms of a lot of early fighting games, where the story is basically text scrolls, or in terms of some of the early Tekken games, is about a 10 second little in-game cutscene where Ganju gives flowers to Nina, and he cries because she rejects him. That's not actually a story. This is actually a story with characters interacting. And one of the things that I actually really liked about the story of MKX, and, well, given that it's a fighting game story, they're going to make people have grievances with each other. But these grievances are actually grievances. It's not, for the most part, it's not actually like, oh, you're a little bit pissing me off, so I'm going to rip all of the blood out of your body. Now, it's really about more like, either I actually want you dead, that one actually shows up a lot, and the slightly less justified, you're in my way, I don't actually want to kill you, but you're in my way. Which is at least a motivation to fight. The, previous games where it's like, oh, you're kind of pissing me off, let's have a match to the death. Doesn't actually happen as much. I was actually kind of afraid, so in the early parts of the game where you're controlling, so some of the new characters of the game are this 4 young upstarts related to some of the established characters. And I was really afraid there were going to be a little training thing where you fight Cassie Cage fighting against Johnny Cage, and it'd be like a little training match, and then you do brutal things to each other. It doesn't actually do that in this game. I mean, of course you can do that in the single fight mode, and the characters will actually say, oh, another training thing, yeah, blah, 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 blah. And then Johnny Cage will rip his daughter's chest in half and stick his head through it, which is really kind of creepy. But that doesn't actually happen in the story mode, where the story is actually important as opposed to the rest of the game. But the single fights and this towers, which are basically in a collection of single fights, actually do a pretty good job of building the character of these characters. So, before each fight, you've got a little exchange between each of the characters. And this happens, there's between every character, even ones that don't interact in the story, or never would have interacted previously. So, say, Kotal Khan and Shinnok. They'd never interact. But they'll have their own little exchanges. And they have multiples of these, which is actually really great for characterization. Because you're seeing what would happen if these characters engaged each other. And you have got these for every character. So you could probably actually get the personality and character of one of these fighters by just seeing all of the interactions they have with the other characters, which I think is really cool. And alright, so let's talk about the tower mode. The tower modes are the traditional arcade modes, if you're used to some older fighting games, where you fight 10 dudes and then a boss battle. And these work fine. There's nothing, there's zero to complain about. It's a pretty simple method, so I'm not really going to talk about that too much. I mean, I think the boss is pretty well done. It's a little irritating that you can't actually skip a lot of the boss's fatalities. He will constantly pull at you if you're not very good, which I wasn't my first tower, so I ended up fighting the boss around 10 times. And I had to fight to see him holding my head aloft while this little world burned around me, which was a little irritating, but besides that, it wasn't too bad. You get to pull off fatalities, brutalities, whatever you want in the tower mode, which is good. But, so, the tower mode is really more for you, the person who wants to be, they want to complete the game with every character. So when you're thinking about, is MKX worth it for me to be single player, in addition to thinking, do I want a decent fighting game story, you want to ask yourself, am I the kind of person who wants to complete the arcade mode of 24 different characters? And if you do, then MKX has a lot to offer you in the single player mode. If you're only interested in playing maybe 3, 4, or even 1 character, then the tower mode is not going to offer as much for you. You'll probably get maybe 20, 15 minutes of gameplay through that. That's it. So, does MKX offer anything else for single player? Well, yeah. Well, there's other kinds of towers too. So what you're actually currently watching is me playing the faction tower mode. And the faction system in this game has some. I've heard a lot of complaints about it. Let's cut the crap because it seems a little tacked on. And I would agree for most parts of it, but I actually think it's a nice addition to a fighting game. You'll get little challenges, which I love for anything like this, and there are either some things like play a certain character, win without jumping. I think these are cool. I think adding little challenges to these really adds to the replayability of the game. Not even the replayability, but I think fighting games like this are the kind of game that you're going to be popping into maybe for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I mean, you could play for an hour and a half, and especially for the story modes I did, but in general, I feel like this kind of game you want to pop in, play, get pumped up, and then go to work, which I have done, which I've also done. But, and in that case, I just forgot entirely what I was talking about. No, but in that case, these faction challenges, they add a little bit, where maybe you start playing for 15 minutes and then you see, oh, I have a faction challenge to not jump and win. You do that, or you have a faction challenge to play as Chinook, which is a little bit weird when you're the Special Forces. And yes, I am Special Forces, because I'm a hipster like that. But, so I think those add a little bit to it. I enjoy being able to complete faction challenges and get a little bit of extra money and maybe help my faction out. I mean, I wish it was a little bit more obvious that I was helping my faction out. Even in the Special Forces, I don't see my individual changes incrementally helping my faction any, which is kind of unfortunate. It'd be nice if you just see, like, you've contributed this much, which I imagine would be a very small amount, but still, it would be cool to see. The factions also give you their own little faction fatalities, which is also pretty cool. I mean, they're much easier to pull off. It's, I think, at least for the Special Forces, I assume they're the same for everyone. It's guard button and either AA or DD or ADA. That's left and right for those on consoles. Which are really easy, but are perfect for when you're trying to pull off an actual fatality, and you're not quite getting it, and the time zone's running out, so you just tell them to shoot them in the face! And, yeah. I think it works. It adds a little bit of difference. Okay. we've just hit one of my least favorite parts of this game, and that is the test your might minigames. So the faction tower that I'm doing here has a test your might thrown in, and you can do these separately too. And I think they're the worst idea ever. Like there's no reason for these to be in this game. So basically what they are is, can you mash buttons enough to destroy this little crystal thing? And as you might see, I ended up failing a lot. They're very unforgiving. And it's the first time it was a little bit of fun, and seeing all of the ways that your character dies is a little bit of fun, but really, for the most part, these just entirely break the flow. Like, I was doing really well in this faction tower. I had just come off of a perfect, what do they call it here? Flawless victory. And then I had to try and test my might over and over again, because I couldn't mash J-I-K fast. For anyone who's having trouble, I would recommend just focusing on 2 keys and having your other hand just kind of randomly press buttons. Because otherwise, I mean, this mode is entirely... it's absolutely irritating. No reason why they should have put these in here. Especially in the middle of a faction tower. So what do I think of the faction towers in general? I think are neat. Like, I think having towers that give you some faction points, have little special things attached to them. I think that's cool. I think it's a good idea, and adds a little bit of newness, because they only show up every once in a while. And if you want to do them, then you do the faction tower while the faction is still there. So it's one day. I mean, you can still do special towers that have modifiers attached to them all the time. But
thank you and good night.
Yeah, so the same thing. What else does the game offer? Anything else? There are endless towers, which add a little bit. And there's this crypt mode. And the crypt is... okay. It's hard to say that the crypt is like adding single-playerness, but it does a little bit. So what it is basically, it's using all of this coin stuff that you're unlocking to basically get concept art, skins, and new fatalities and brutalities. Some people might say, oh, the crypt is just kind of like a way to force a monetization scheme into it, which there is, to buy these like easy fatality tokens or whatever, which I don't care about. It's whatever. It doesn't matter to me. I actually like the way of I like being able to unlock things by playing the game. Honestly, it might have been a bit nicer if I unlocked Johnny Cage things by playing as Johnny Cage, instead of kind of randomly going around a graveyard and grabbing things, take coins to break things and randomly get Chinook concept art, which I don't want. But I still think it's a cool idea. And also, it's played in a little, like, first person, you're actually exploring a little graveyard, which is weird, but it's kind of cool. It makes it a little bit easier than it's kind of some other fighting games where you just go through a list and you say, I've got the points for this, unlock. And there's also some little quick time events that pop up, which... actually, that's the exact right place for quick time events. In an entirely no stress otherwise, moving around environment, and then suddenly something jumps out at you. Fine. You know what? I am okay with Mortal Kombat testing my reflexes in times when I don't think should be testing my reflexes. I think that's good. Honestly, I would be okay if we put quick time events on the net. Well, maybe. I mean, what would it do? Just quick time events, if we succeed, get a little bit of money. Maybe. Ignore them, no problem. So yeah, overall, is this worth it for a single player? And the answer is if you are the kind of person who wants to play as a single character and just become really good at that character, probably not. You're going to want to be able to play online and kind of really get better and better at that character. If you want to be able to, like, say, oh, I beat the story mode, and I beat all the arcade tower challenges as a person, and I got some points for my faction, then yeah. Then I think you can have a lot of fun with Mortal Kombat just playing by yourself. I mean, I played about 3 games of online, so barely.